talk on the Microsoft Windows Firewall control. Please let me, there we go. So what is it? So pretty much what it is, it's a plugin for the Windows Firewall pretty much. There's some cool features. I find it kind of cool and really useful during competition, like a lot of cool stuff you can do. Why you should use it? I mean, in a competition environment, it can really mess with red team's whole shebang, really lock down your host-based firewalls, which, again, pretty important. Host-based firewalls can really block a lot of red team activity, and also, I mean, hey, you can password protect the firewall, which I think is pretty cool. Features. So, here are all the wonderful features of Windows Advanced Firewall. What most of these all secure boot. Just make sure so you can't. We'll go over most of these later, actually. So, first one's filter settings. You want to filter. It's kind of like the Windows, like, hey, allow if it matches rule, allow if it doesn't match this rule, stuff like that. As you can see here, pretty much you just have a setting for what you might want. So if you're high filtering, you don't want anything out. That can be useful if you just want to, like, say, just want to lock down a box during competition. You don't want anyone but you on it. And so then, do that, make your security changes, and then put yourself back on the network. Medium filtering, low filtering. Low filtering might be what you might want to do during competition on a server. Pretty much, as long as it doesn't match a rule, it's blocked. Medium filtering might be for a client, where like if you're just making a lot of outbound connections, you kind of just want anything that's not blocked specifically just to be allowed. And then inbound connections, because Windows 5 is stateful, you really anything inbound is only going to have a rule for it. Notifications, this is the cool part. So like basically whenever you have blocked something on the Windows Firewall with this plugin, a notification pops and says, oh, you blocked this outbound connection, which might be really useful. If there's a red team beacon, it's like, oh, this process of ID, this to this IP to do whatever got blocked. That's really helpful with threat hunting. You can also create rules specifically to block or allow it. It's like, for example, you block like an actual service on your box, like RDP or web, then you can allow it. You can also like allow it for a time. So like, let's say you want to allow a web connection out so you can download something, but obviously you don't want port 80 open the entire competition. You can like just set a rule to allow it for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, it'll delete the rule that allowed it. It's pretty cool, pretty great. But also just a lot less like shuffling around, having to add and delete rules during competition. And yeah, pretty much it's really good for threat hunting, also making rules on the fly, and also figuring out what's on your system. There's also some security features in it. Secure boot, pretty much, if red team restarts your box or does something to change something, it'll actually block all, like, it'll go to high filtering mode or just block everything until you turn that off, which is really nice. So that if like red team is something that runs on the start, that calls out, that'll be blocked until like you actually have a chance to get on and actually stop, like secure your box and stop stuff. But beware, don't put that on a cloud box. If your cloud box restarts, you're not getting back in that cloud box. Also stops, importing some new changes. And rules actually, like if you try to import a firewall set, can't do that. And secure rules tries to make it so you can't make rules that aren't through the software. There's not actually, they say on their site, there's not actually a way for them to do that in like the Microsoft code. But so pretty much what they do is that they just kind of scan the rules, and until when you make a rule, it just instantly deletes or disables it depending on the setting you have. And then the whole connections log. Pretty much TCP dump just tells you all the inbound, outbound connections on your computer, the process ID, the executable. Really, really nice. Pretty much part 2. It's just a whole log file of all the connections on your computer. Really, really good for threat hunting. You can even like, this cool stuff, the camera's blocking it, but you can do whois queries and verify IP addresses. Actually really, really cool. And there's also a password feature, which I find kind of jank because like you set a password for the firewall control, and so like nothing can like interact with it unless they have the password. But like once you unlock it, it like goes back to a state where like if it was never a password set, it's not like where how I'd expect it to work, where like if you type in a password and then every time you type in a password just to access it, when you type in a password you just delete the password thing, which is really weird. And so like someone else could just set their own password and then you're locked out. But if you have the password set, red team can't actually uninstall it, and that's actually kind of nice. That's something cool I found out. The downsides is one, it's made by it's owned by Malwarebytes, which will get some people reading oh, you're using AV, but it's not AV. It's just a plugin for the firewall. It's not even a firewall itself. So some people might be oh, it's Malwarebytes, it's AV, that's not allowed or whatever, and that's kind of annoying to have to deal with that. The password stuff is iffy. Again, red team could use it against you if they wanted to. Set their own password, use their own firewall rules, block you out. But pretty much it has a lot of big advantages. And I have a short demo. Kind of just it's probably gonna work. I'm just demonstrating the features I talked about. I got a lot. I need a lot of VMs, man. So, pretty much, we have this nice whole security thing that has pretty much you do all the settings through here. You can open up this to find the connections log. So it's pretty spicy. I mean, John, you just did a red team talk. How what do you try and do when a blue team is trying to set up their firewalls? You body that, right? You delete it. You make your own rules. Yeah. Yeah, if you make sure your own rules are there, but if this is stopping you from making your own rules, that's pretty annoying. So as you can see here, if DNS it got blocked, you can allow it if you want DNS to be out. Or I have here, for example, a red team script. Well, not a red team script, a short script that just calls out. You try and invoke press, you can see here. Oh no, PowerShell isc.exe started doing stuff. Or for example here, if you want to do example of threat hunting, you would do okay. I need to stop this while true loop. Okay, so we have not suspicious.ps1. Red team runs this on your system that calls out as a beacon. Oh, that's smart screen. Get out of here. And, oh, we got a PowerShell.exe. What? I didn't call this out. How do I do this? Okay, let's go to Process Explorer and look at this process ID. And so we open up Process Explorer. And PID 4516. Where is that? Oh, 4516. It's a PowerShell instance. What is this? I didn't make this. What is happening? Hold on. There we go. Oh, and we go here. What am I looking for? Environment. It's image. Oh, the command line. It's running not sus.ps1 at this location. Let's check that out. Oh, now we know what red team might be running, or it might be an exe, so maybe you might want to do something else with that. But it's an example of being able to threat hunt, kind of with this notification system. You could go into the TCP connections log and just look around for stuff that looks kind of suspicious. Let's stop that. And then, for example, if we have the secure rules on, could you just block? Okay, so we have the secure rules on. If let's say I'm trying to make my rules as red team, I want to allow, for that remote IP, I want to allow my own stuff on. I made it a really annoying name so it'll show up. So I have it set so that it disables on unauthorized rules. So usually when you add a rule, it gets enabled, but I add and it should show up just instantly disabled. And so pretty much when red team tries to make their own rules through Winarama command line, either you instantly disables, deletes it. Obviously, you want it to instantly disable probably, so you can also just threat hunt through that. Be like, oh, they're trying to make a rule to call out to this IP. I should, Yeah, John's having a good time. Let me showing all the tricks to stopping red team. No, so red team's trying to call out to this IP. Let me just block that IP specifically, or kind of see what the IP has. Or they're trying to open up this port. There's probably a beacon on that port. Let me go through the connections logs and look through all the connections to that port and see if there's something calling out that I don't know. And it's really so using stuff like that can stop red team from making rules to start calling out, and also help you threat hunt in general. I think it's a really useful tool to use during competitions, just because like it can really help body red team network wise if you can get it installed. That's mostly for the demo. Any questions?
Is there a way to bypass it?
Is there a way to bypass it? You could try if you could try launching the application yourself, or besides that, and like getting your own password stuff or anything. But besides that, not really. It's kind of like supposed to secure the Windows firewall. It does a good job at doing that. Where like red team like through command line, there's not really much they can do, and if you set the password, they can't even uninstall it. So like, it's pretty Gucci gang. Any other questions? Just louder.
Would you say that you are still slanging 380?
Yes. Oh, for the stream, by the way, Emmanuel asked if there's any way to bypass it, and the short answer is kind of no. So I don't want to expose those secrets because we might be